So hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this session on writers in residence in Europe and throughout the whole world. My name is Sigrid Bousset from the Passaporta International House of Literature in Brussels, which I'm directing. And on my left are sitting two writers who have been in residence. It's Rachida Lamrabet from Belgium and Neil Mukherjee from London. And on my right is sitting Catherine Silver, the program director of the Banff International Translation Center in Canada. Now, the first part of the talk, I will concentrate on the experience of our two writers in residence. After I will have explained about Passaporta and the Halma network. And then we'll continue talking about the translation residence. And then finally, we can have a discussion also with the floor on experiences we share. Now, Passaporta is an international house of literature in the heart of Brussels, which is a meeting place for lovers of literature and also creators of literature, where we make the link between Dutch, French and foreign language literature in Brussels. We have a Passaporta podium, a Passaporta laboratory, a lab, where we have a poetry collective, a translation collective, where we make people create together. We have a Passaporta residence program, which is quite big. It's mainly focused on writers and writers exchange. And then we have the big annual Passaporta Festival, which is an international festival where we receive some 150 writers on 4 days in Brussels. Now, I'm also a board member of the Halma network, which was started in 2008 in Europe. It was founded by the Literarisches Kolloquium in Berlin with support of the Bosch Foundation in Germany. And the idea of Halma is that literary centers would connect more in Europe to the benefit of authors, translators, and literature promoters. Halma comes from the Greek, it means jump, and we want to make writers and translators jump or create opportunities for them to move from one European house to the other in order to work, to research and to realize projects. So the idea is that we have Halma grounds, which are supported by cultural institutes and foundations for literature, and that so a young generation of writers can move in Europe and get out of the borders of his language area in order to experience what it is to go work and live in another culture and be in touch with the people from the literary scene in that other culture or that other country. This is also exactly what happened with Rachida and Neil. Actually, the Passaporta residence program consists of 20 writers a year from abroad who come to Belgium to stay for 1 month. They get a little grant for it, and the accommodation is free, and they can choose between an apartment in the heart of Brussels or a land house outside of Brussels, depends on what kind of work they're doing. If they really want to be isolated or more being immersed in the city. And another part of the work is that we wanted to offer opportunities also to our own writers in Belgium to go and have a residency abroad. So we started to set up bilateral exchanges between Belgium and other countries. And so we have an exchange with the Netherlands, with Montreal in Canada, with Pittsburgh, with Croatia, New York, the Ledick House. And so often we also have the writers write letters to each other. They write little pieces that we will publish in the newspaper. And so last year we realized such residence exchange between Brussels and London, and it was Passaporta together with the Free Word Center in London who set this up. So what we wanted to focus on was have young emerging writers feel what it is to go and live in another metropole rather than going to live somewhere on the countryside and focus on their work. We wanted to really have them immersed in a new city and what it means, what kind of influence it would have on their work to have this stay for 1 month in another town. So the Free Word Centre in London chose Neil Mukherjee to come to Brussels, and Passaporta chose Rashida Lamrabet to go to London. So maybe first I will start asking you what it has meant for you, this experience, and what you exactly did during that stay in Brussels. I want to quote Neil in the exchange of letters they did together and which were published in the newspapers. Neil quoted a sentence of Adorno saying, "It is the moral duty of a writer not to feel at home anywhere." And he was talking about this condition of outsiderness, which is a very productive one for a writer. So, Neil.
Yeah, that was a very big thing to start with Adorno on my shoulders. Yeah, that sentence comes from his Minima Moralia, where he said it's the moral duty of a writer not to feel at home in one's home. And I think the condition of outsiderness is a very productive one for the for a writer, because standing outside, you kind of get a bigger picture, a sharper picture of things than when you are in the middle of things. If you go outside, you can see the building. Inside, it's a bit hellish, but no. This was my first residency. I had never done a writer's residency before, and I tend to write in the mess of my own life, which every life is. It's a kind of mess. You make certain adjustments with it, and you find the time to write. And I thought if I were to sort of be uprooted from that kind of daily mess, and put into a vacuum where I only have to write and I have none of these other moorings of real life, like feeding the cat or doing the washing up or cleaning the house or something, or doing grocery shopping, I'd actually be bored and kind of lose my way. Well, exactly the opposite happened. I found out that, to put it very succinctly, I broke the back of my book in Brussels. And I had 6 weeks of residency there, and I stayed in the center of the city in the apartment. And this was a very canny move on the part of Head Beschreif and Passaporta, because they intuited somehow that I'm not the kind of person who functions well with acres and acres of field and only cows around. They put me in the middle of a city. They gave me a beautiful apartment. They gave me a very generous stipend, and they said, just get on with it. So that's what I did. I got on with it. I used to go to bed really early, like about 9. So I was getting up at 5 in the morning. This does not happen in London. And I just got on with the business of sitting down and writing every day. The front room is beautiful. It's light-filled. It looks out onto a beautiful square called the Old Grain Market. And it's a gift, that writers are given. It's the gift of time. It's the gift of silence. It's the gift of freedom, of a great liberation from all the things in your real life that you make compromises with. And sometimes, those compromises mean that the writing gets put on the back burner. With a residency like this, you're given this complete freedom, and I cannot put in words like how valuable that freedom is to just get on with your writing. That's what the residency gave me. Rashida.
Well, I was completely overwhelmed by the city of London, and quite the opposite to your experience. I did not had the feeling that I had the space to write. I could not get myself to write in London. I was too busy discovering the city and having all these impressions. I was like a sponge taking all these impressions, and I was eager every day to go out in the street and to learn more about the city, the people, the cultural life. I went to theater, I went to debates and stuff like that, and I felt it like it's like a shame to lock myself up in my room and try to be productive. I could not do that, so I just used the time I had in London to really go out and see the city and meet people and see things. And it's true that I think for it was also the first time for me to go on a residence, and I think what every writer or every person is of course different, but I think what for me what would work is that when you go out to discover a new place, you have to have the time to do that. And when you do that, you have no time to do other things. I'm like that. I cannot do several things at a time. I have to discover the place where I'm in, to have to feel the heartbeat of a place, to learn how that place is organized, how it works, how the people are, and then afterwards, when I have all these impressions, and it can take a long time, those impressions emerge again, come back, and I can do something with it, but not at the moment itself. So it takes a lot of time. So what would have worked for me, for instance, is to be in a place and then to try to learn it and then come back again. But with really the focus or the idea of being creative, try to do something with the experiences that you already had in that place. So when I'm at a place that I don't know, I cannot confine myself in a room and just try to be creative or productive. So I think you have to come back and to try to make those impressions come out in a way. And as you said, it is very attractive to go out on a residence and thinking, I'm living my messy life, where it is very difficult to organize and to write. You write besides all the other things, the thousand things you have to do in your normal life. But I discovered also that that doesn't work for me, because writing is just a part of my messy life. So I cannot do it when I don't have my messy life.
Right.
Well, that's interesting. Because indeed, writers often crave for going away from their messy life in order to write. But I think you're making there a very good recommendation, Rashida, on the fact that actually a residence program for a writer would be really an ideal situation if after a couple of weeks or months he could or she could go back to the same place. And actually this is also what we discovered at Passaporta, that actually 1 month is so quickly over, so you hardly have the time also as an organization to get to know your writer, to get him introduced in a proper way into the culture, to have him meet people, because of course there is the discovery of the city, there is the discovery of the cultural scene, there is the writing, there is so many things at the same time that you're dealing with in a residence. And so we also decided that we want to give the writers the occasion to come back for another month, so that the residency actually maximum will take 2 months, or they do it in one big part, 2 months, the one after the other, or they take 1 month, the 1 year, and they come back 6 months later or 1 year later. Would that work for you as well,
Oh
Neil?
my God, yes, yeah, of course this would work for me. I did not spend all my time being a stick in the mud, you know. I find Brussels a very beautiful city. In fact, it reminds me of London in the sense that, unlike, say, a city like Paris, which is very uniformly beautiful and can get a bit boring, Brussels, like London, has texture, and I like that urban grit. You have beautiful Regency houses, and right next to it is some, a place that has come up like a brutalist structure which had to come up very quickly after the bombing during the Second World War. So Brussels has that kind of urban texture which I love. So I did walk around, and I went to beautiful Antwerp and Ghent, and I spent time in their fantastic museum. There's a Marguerite museum, which I think it's worth going to Brussels just for that, for a day trip to Brussels to see the Marguerite museum. So yes, the opportunity to visit a city and to explore it, and then to have the luxury of going back again, yes, of course.
Do you think this stay in this other country, in this other city, will be visible in the work you have been working on during your stay, or in some kind of other work you will be producing in the future?
In another work in the future. The book I'm writing now is set entirely in India from the 1890s to 1971. So no, there is no way I can fit Belgium in, but things have been brewing in my mind about Brussels, and I've been reading a lot of Belgian writers recently, inspired by my stay in Brussels. So no, it will definitely come back at some point. I know in my life these things happen, that things from the past come back. So.
What about you, Rashida?
Well, I do not want you to have the idea that I have been playing a tourist for a whole month. I have been writing also. I've wrote an essay on theater, and for that occasion I have been also to theater pieces, and I've read a lot, and in that sense I have learned also a great deal about how you Londoners deal with the other stories that are not classical Western, and how that takes shape in theater and in literature. And I wrote an essay about what place we could give to that other story, because it's something that we in Belgium have not been confronted with as much as in the Anglo-Saxon world has. So in that matter, I think London has a lot of things to learn to us, and that's the thing that I take with me. Of course, the good practices and the experience that you already have on that domain, and that where we in the vast land in Belgium are less experienced on that domain. So yes.
You're talking about multiculturalism, and
yeah,
which is a given in London.
Which is a given that is. I don't want to be naive, of course. It's not like I had that idea, of course, before coming to London.
Yeah.
London, the city was an idea. I knew the city by reading, by books, by literature, by the news, and so on. But coming to London, of course, altered a bit my view. And I had also that idea that London was really the Valhalla of multiculturalism, that you had found a way of integrating all those different stories and different cultures in a harmonious way and giving it a place. It's not that smooth.
No.
There are some problems, of course,
but
I think I think that there is anyway how to say a modus vivendi between all those different stories and different cultures that is acceptable, that is working. And the feeling I have is that in Belgium we are still in that clash situation where we are we'd rather close the door than opening it to the other?
Well, two very brief things. Integration is a process, not an end point, I feel. And the other thing is that, clashes can be productive. So, anyway, I should...
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. This topic is also a topic which has been discussed between both of you in the exchange of letters you have been doing. So in the bilateral exchanges we ask the writer from one country going to the other to write a letter to the writer going from the other country to the one. So, and these letters are translated then, and they are published in the TLS of Belgium, let's say, so in the most important newspaper, and the other way around, we also try to publish it in the other country. So to make also visible the work we are doing, because of course when you're starting up residence work, the main aim is to offer opportunities to the writers, but you do it also with money from the government and from sponsors, and they want visibility. And so you try to match those two elements, creating opportunities and content and visibility, and of course this exchange of letters published in the newspaper or publishing a book like this one, Writing Away from Home, a Passaporta book.
This is a beautiful book,
with all the experiences of writers who have been staying in our residence, creates also visibility. And also we ask the writers who have been staying in our residence to mention on the front page of their next book that they have been writing it partly in a residence, in the Passaporta residence. And it is just great to see, but of course it's not a condition at all, that at one point in the production of the writer's work, at one point something of what he has been experiences during the stay in the residence will come out and will be visible in one of the following books. Of course, sometimes also writers in residence come to Brussels with a specific project on Brussels. So it's not a condition at all, but sometimes it is nice that you really have a project that you really feel the writer needs to be in Brussels in order to create his next novel. Maybe I would like to give the floor to you, Catherine Silver. You're the program director of the Banff International Literary Translation Center, and maybe you can tell us how your residency program works.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I do want to connect a little bit to what they were both saying. I'm first and foremost a literary translator, and I'm co-director, not director. And I first went to the Banff program as a translator, and it's interesting because my experience was then echoed by the participants in the next couple years when I went as a consulting translator and then as the co-director, in that people arrived for 3 weeks and the panic was, how am I going to get my work done and explore this incredible national park, the mountains, this river, the everything. And overall, how I felt at the end of the residency and how many people felt it was amazing how much they could get done and explore, because when you're not cooking or cleaning or shopping, when your meals are made for you and you walk between buildings and the swimming pool's right there and the mountains are right there, you can get a lot done. So there was no contradiction between working and exploring in that environment. Anyway, so now I put my co-director hat on. The Banff International Literary Translation Center is housed at the Banff Center in Banff, Alberta, Canada. And it was inspired by a network of international literary translation centers in Europe. Peter Bush from Norwich and Claude Bleton from Arles came and consulted in setting it up. But BILTSI, which is the acronym, and I'll be using that, is unique in I think, some very important ways. It's definitely the only program of its kind in North America, and I don't know, but I think there are none. Can you hear me?
You said it was the most
I know,
important one.
I know. We've never gotten such a fanfare. So it's unique in that we have 15 literary translators in residence for the entire 3 weeks. And this creates a true community and deepens international professional connections. There's a whole host of projects that emerge from this, this group, and people maintain contact, visit each other for years and years and years. I testify, some of my best friends were with me in 2007 in Banff. We also have budget to invite up to 9 writers, authors. Translators are writers, but we have 9 authors who come. But again, they come only, the projects are all motivated by translators. So if the translator requests a joint residency, and if the author usually lives in North America, then we try to invite the author for 1 week of the 3 weeks. The program also has 3, sometimes more, depending on length of stay, but at any given time we have 3 consulting translators. This is kind of a tricky point and something, a perception that we're working very hard, especially in North America for some reason. In Europe, this doesn't seem to be as much of a problem. The consulting translators are not necessarily more senior than the participants. They simply are not, they usually are senior, they often have some experience teaching, but we often have participants who are just as senior. They simply are not working on their own project at the time, and they are available for consultation. They lead the group meetings or workshops, whatever we want to call them. So, and the program is open to literary translators from North America, Canada, Mexico, the US, who are translating literature from anywhere in the world, or translators from anywhere in the world translating literature from the Americas. So if you're a British translator, you can come to Banff if you're translating an American author, America meaning North, South, Central America, the whole continent from top to bottom. So yes, so either the author or the translator has to be from North America in order to come. And the selections are made by, we have an advisory council. Just a little interruption, the Banff Center is an arts campus housed, located in Banff, Canada. And they have about 60 programs in all the arts. I think about 30 or 40 throughout the year in literary arts. I think we're the only program with an advisory council, and that's because we are a trinational, or almost 4 nations, if you consider Quebec a separate nation, if not country. So we have 2 advisory council members from Mexico, the US, and Canada each, and then the co-directors, Hugh Hazelton and myself. He lives in Montreal, and I live in California. So all the applications are adjudicated by these 8 people. And then we have, in order to add an element of bringing up the next generation of translators, we do have 1 student from each country, Mexico, US, and Canada. And in Mexico, the student is picked by the university. In Canada as well, they're supported by the universities. In the United States, unfortunately, we have very few universities who have the budget or the desire to support their students, so we pay for it in a different way, and they apply directly. And we also have a mandate to support Indigenous First Nations projects from the Americas. So in every opportunity we get, we invite translations into and out of first Indigenous languages, autochthonous languages. I would say the core purpose of this residency is to give translators, literary translators, 3 weeks, actually working professional translators, I would add, 3 weeks of uninterrupted work on their project in the company of other artists, of other literary translators. And they're the only sort of required program events that one needs to go to are 3 workshops a week for about 2 hours each. And workshop, we haven't found the right word, and as translators, we're always looking for the right word. Workshop does make it sound a bit like students. We try to make the sessions helpful. And so people will bring a problem they're having or an issue. It could be theoretical, it could be practical. Usually people, since they're working on their projects, they bring something they're struggling with. And everybody participates in, it gives their 2 cents, basically. And these presentations, the entire program is held trilingually. If there's, everybody can do the presentation in either of the 3 languages. If there's somebody there who does not understand the language of presentation, then there is simultaneous or consecutive translating offered for participants. So as a participant, you do not need to know all 3 languages at all. I could talk about the requirements, but that information's on the website, so if people have any specific questions about requirements of the project or the translator, I can answer that later. And I think that's pretty much just a couple things. We really are focused on, actually at the Banff Center, this program is under their professional development aegis. So it really is about professional development. We view the translator as a professional and as an artist, a professional artist perhaps. And the point of the residency is to nourish that. So that's what we do. And it's absolutely gorgeous. I probably should have put a PowerPoint presentation so you could see the mountains, but I'm terrible with technology. Oh, and one other thing. This is a book, Beyond Words. It was edited by the former director, Susan Oreo. It's a collection of essays written by participants. The program's now been going on for 10 years. And hopefully we'll do another book like this. I know it's already being used in classrooms across North America and hopefully maybe somewhere in Europe. So these are, it's kind of an eclectic. It's not all theory. It's theory, practice, specifics. There's some really interesting essays in there by participants. So.
Thank you very much, Catherine. What is interesting in what you're talking about in your model is the community you are creating between translators and also with writers when needed in the joint residencies. And of course, as a consequence, the aspect of networking. You meet people, you stay in touch with them, you give information, you share problems. And of course, also the fact that residencies can have translations as a result. Yeah, in your case, it is evident because it is a translator's residence, so people come to translate. But so the residence exchange model we have been talking about with you was more focused on an individual writer visiting a city on his own, whereas you also have in Europe and in the world writers in residence programs, like in Letic House or Artomi in New York, where we also have an exchange with, where a writer will arrive in a big center, also 2 hours north of New York City, where they will stay for 1 or 2 months together.
With other writers.
Well,
with other writers, yes.
Excuse me, I was also a participant at Letic House. I went there, and it's very different than this program because people are coming and going constantly. So you don't create, but it also, yes, it has that quality of definitely you have the time to do your work. Yeah, and Letic House also has authors and translators in residence, right?
Is this something Neil or Rashida you are also looking for when you're thinking about residency, that this networking aspect, the fact that you would share experience, writing experience with other writers?
No. No, I think being left just to do your own work is a gift enough, I think. Rashida.
Yeah, I'm also overtuigd. Convinced that writing is very solitary and that you cannot do it by 2, 3 or 3 persons. You have to do it on your own. But it's of course very good to have that kind of network and to know people. If it wasn't the residence program, I wouldn't have met Neil and his work. So it definitely is enriching and opens up your world.
But can you imagine? You go down to dinner. You've written 3 words, and somebody's sitting next, and you're sitting next to Zadie Smith, who says, "Oh yeah, I just finished my novel this afternoon." You're going to feel about this small, I think. It's good not to have those, to field those things, I think.
Yeah, I think this is very individual because writing indeed is a solitary thing, and so that's why often also writers feel like freed when they are also sharing, when they feel like someone else in this other room is doing the same thing and is struggling with the same things, is trying to put words on paper. And this is something maybe your own family does not always understand, or your own surroundings at home. So anyhow, what we feel over the last decades in Europe and the rest of the world, and certainly also in America, is that all these that residence houses, that more and more residence houses are set up. That there is the Hallman network, there is the Residencies network for translation houses, and that they are all functioning as ways of creating time and space for writers, but also to create mobility and to create the fact that you can cross the language borders, because especially in Europe we are all in our small language areas, and residences also can help to maybe to be translated in that other language. Neil's work was now part of it translated to be published in the newspaper, the letter you wrote. So also the idea of the joint residency, Katie, can you talk a bit more about this translation writer?
You mean not the fact that we form a community, but you're saying about the author. The authors come for 1 week. Actually, since Hugh and I are directors, many of the authors that we've invited and have come are also translators. Actually, this year we're going to have an author who's a translator, an editor, and an author. And so we really like that kind of... Anne Carson was our special guest invited writer last year. So she is poet and translator, and they work together as much as they want. Some authors and translators don't work together at all. Some work a lot. Just one word about the joint residency. I think it's absolutely true. I think for translators, I often think of translators as utopians, visionaries. We actually believe communication is possible, even across languages. And so you get a whole group of them together for 3 weeks in this incredibly utopian setting, and it's quite magical. We're both loners and gregarious people, so there's something very wonderful. A lot of us work in isolation. We work in our house, in our hovels, but we are always in conversation with the text and with the author of the text, one step removed. So there's this wonderful feeling of being present for each other and with the author that happens at Banff. So it's very magical. It is a very different process at that level than the initial conception of the work and writing. So I think they serve two different functions.
I don't know if in the audience there are also writers, translators who have experiences with residencies, or maybe directors of people working in residence houses who could give us, share experience or give us some recommendations.
So hello, I'm Sarah, and I'm a literary translator from French. And I've been to the Marseille area twice. I was lucky enough to have a grant from the French Book Office. And the first time I went, I sort of had Rashida's experience. I was in Marseille. I was particularly in the Algerian community in Marseille. And it was just an extraordinary opportunity for me to be funded, to have time to find out all that I wanted to about backslang, about music, about community circles there that was going to impact on the sort of translation I wanted to go into. So that was a residency, if you like, that was going to the heart of stimulation and nourishing and resourcing what I wanted to translate about. And the other experience I had was going to the Arles Centre, which Katie was mentioning, so the Centre for Literary Translators in Arles. And it was completely surreal. There was the Sao Paulo translator of Harry Potter, there was the St. Petersburg translator of Derrida, there was the Serbian translator of Makin. I mean, it was unbelievable that all these people were shoulder to shoulder, and it wasn't there wasn't the competitive aspect that Neil is worried about, because we're not authoring, as you say, we're translating. And it was a wonderful sort of relaxment out of freakery to find that there were all these people doing these equally crazy things everywhere. But to have the resource there, it's a beautiful building, it's called the Van Gogh Center, it's a very old square with a building going around it, and there's a library open literally 24/7. And you have people in their pajamas, in there whatever time they wanted to, beautiful little rooms to stay in, and then this amazing town, Owl, on your doorstep. But that was somewhere I feel I can go when I'm dealing with a very difficult text. That's going to be hard for me to do in messy life times. And there, all the resources are there. There are these people in a similar energy to me getting on with it. And there's the exchange as much as you do or don't want. So those are two different residency experiences that I've had.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah, hi, I'm Sampurna Chatterjee. I'm currently the writer in residence from India at the University of Kent in Canterbury. And it was absolutely wonderful to hear Neil and Sasha's experiences, because I think I've experienced both the things. This residency is for 3 months, so it's not 1 month, so I didn't get the... when I came, I had the feeling that Sasha had. How on earth am I going to sit in this room and only write when there's Canterbury at my doorstep and London an hour away on the high-speed train? But what I figured out is that 3 months seems to me an ideal time, because you get enough time to sort of slip into the rhythms of another planet, as it were, because I live in Bombay. So life doesn't get messier than being in Bombay. And then I arrive in Canterbury, it's so beautiful and medieval and glittering, and I think I'm in a, Chaucerian story. And then I take the train and I'm in London, and which again received through literature and cinema first, and then lived and experienced as a city. I have to say it's been incredible. Constantly besieged by fears. Am I writing enough? Should I be locking myself up? Should I be wandering? A lot of the same experiences of gathering impressions so that I know that this will come out somewhere else. The work that I came there, this is a residency that allows you to choose a project that you'd like to work on. So it was a poetry project that I'm on. I am a novelist as well as a poet. The poetry project in my proposal note has taken a 360-degree turn simply because of the fact that every night outside my window I see the cathedral. So the cathedral has impacted my poetry in a way I thought it would never do. I'm a very urban, modern city poet. What's a cathedral doing in my poetry? But that's what happens when you go on residencies. You have strange things happening, traces of the places impact your work. And I think it can't get more beautiful than that. Marseille, it's wonderful she mentioned Marseille, because India, Mumbai and Marseille did a translation exchange program, a lot like what Passaporta is doing, not for a month, unfortunately, just 10 days. Poets, 3 poets traveling to Bombay and 3 poets traveling to Marseille, working on each other's poems, translating each other's poems in their cities. So we were translated into French in Marseille, and we translated the French poets into Marathi and English while they were in Bombay. So I think it's, like Neil said, incredible gift. A big thank you to the people who organize these things, who fund these things, and who believe in writers enough to give them this time and to trust them. I could just be doing nothing. I was asked by somebody, will someone from the university or the School of English where I'm based be looking at what you've done after 3 months? I said, not at all. So, it's completely on trust. And I think that puts a particular kind of pressure on you. It's a good pressure, because you could simply go off the handle. And as my mother warned me before leaving Bombay, don't go to too many pubs. So that could be an occupational hazard as a resident. But I think it's absolutely wonderful. So people in the audience who want to apply for it, if you aren't already inspired enough, here's another hurrah for the residencies.
Well, here, I think we should raise a hand for all these people who fund us and who organize these things. So.
Are there any funders in the place who could give their experience? No? So
I can give you just a little anecdote about. We recently were looking to renew some private funding that we had. The Banff Center and BILTSI are funded by a combination of governments, private and university funding, and so they want concrete success stories, and it's really an interesting thing to try to put together and to try to think about, like, how can you quantify the German translator who has translated 150 books, and after 3 weeks he said, I have a completely new lease on my work. I had become a hack. I hadn't realized it. I mean, how do you quantify that for a funder? I don't know what they want to see, I guess books published, projects that have emerged, but it's really an interesting way to look at what are the outcomes of the program. So.
Yeah, maybe for the residence organizers, like you are, is there anything you think which could be improved also in the collaborations?
In collaboration?
With other centers?
Well, as I was mentioning to you, I think I took over a couple years ago, and it was sort of Banff hadn't quite moved totally into the electronic age. There's some brochures over there still. We're still doing brochures, cards. But really, I think we're getting the word out. And definitely Europe has discovered us. We had so many European applications this year. But getting the word out by email. So I would just love to find out how we can really share, make sure every translator in Europe, just like every translator in North America, knows about our program and would give us the honor of applying. So we can talk about that. I don't know, any ideas about?
Are there any other remarks or stories to be shared? Yes.
I'm English, but I actually live in Marseille, so I'm a bit of a freak. But I wanted to ask if anybody knew of Residencies where there were other people besides writers who might nourish the writing.
Well, the band.
I'm thinking of other artists. I'm thinking of painters, sculptors, musicians. I think there can be real exchanges there, and nobody's mentioned that.
Well, the Banff Center, actually, that's one of the amazing things about the Banff Center. While you're in residency there are chamber musicians, jazz musicians, theater people, visual artists, and you have the opportunity to go every single evening. There are music concerts or theater productions or readings, and in the hot tub you might have an informal conversation with a choreographer. And actually this year we're going to have a special panel on music and translation and performing musicians and the relationship between being a literary translator and being a performing musician, which has always been one of my fascinating things. So we're going to have a panel on that. So yes, I'm glad you brought that up. It's really quite amazing to be there in the company of all these other artists. That's all they're doing.
This is not quite a residency thing, but the Radcliffe Institute in Boston, they have a very cushy fellowship every year, which they give to, I don't know, about 15 or 20 people. And they pick people across disciplines who then go and stay in Radcliffe Institute for a year. Or it's a year, or maybe it's 2 years, actually, I think. And it's extremely well funded, and you just go and do your work. And they specifically pick people across disciplines so that a cross-pollination of ideas can happen.
I think it is amazing to see how in the last decade and also in the future all kinds of residence houses and systems and programs have been started up, and what possibilities there are for artists, for writers, for translators. But it is indeed my feeling that we don't know enough about the possibilities. I mean, it is a question for me if writers are well informed enough about, and translators about, how they could find a residency stay, where to go, how to deal with it. How is it for you? Is the next step for you both to go on other residencies in the future?
Once you're in the middle of a project, I think I wouldn't like to go on a residency where I'm still casting about for ideas, because that means I would have that anxiety. My God, I mean, I'm not writing anything. Have I wasted all my time coming here? It's good to go while you're in the middle of a project. So you know that you need to get work done on it. So that's perfect timing. And in my case, I was lucky. That kind of perfect timing happened. Rashida might have other thoughts.
Well, yes, like I told you before, I think when to go on residencies is a good thing, but I would do it in two parts, like I told you in the beginning. The first part, just to have those impressions working on you, and then the second part, then to try to do some intensive work and writing, and effectively doing that when you already have a project going on, and it's good to have then the time to finish up or to finish the work that you've started in your messy life. Yeah.
Would you feel like going on a residency where there is some kind of creation process or a task you're asked for? Like, let me explain myself. Literature Across Frontiers, for example, did a project on, or will do a project on tram lines. So they will ask in several cities where there is a tram line, ask writers to go on the tram line from one part of the city to another part of the city and write about it, and then publication will be made, and this would link different cities together. Do you feel as a writer that during a residency you really want to continue doing your own work, or would you be open for such kind of collaborations and input by organizers who would ask you one specific thing to write on?
Well, it depends how much time it eats into your own project. So, for example, I was extremely happy to do this exchange of letters with Rashida because it was something I was really interested in, and it was produced and published beautifully in the Standard. And it did not, and I did not worry about it all the time, thinking, God, look, I need to think about it. I need to write this, and it's eating into my writing time. So that balance was there, right? But a project like this tramline project sounds fascinating, but I suspect it's a bit too substantial for it'll kind of encroach on your writing time, on your own project, I feel. So I don't know. There needs to be a balance. What Rashida?
Well, the residence in London for me came, I think, at a good time because I just had finished my last novel, so my head was really empty, and I had no new projects, and that's why I could focus on writing that essay on theater and writing the letter. So if it's something, if the residence is linked with a task or a project of the organization, like writing about a specific subject, then I think yes, it's interesting, but not when I'm writing on my own work. So it would have to come on the right time when you have in your head the space to do that. Like I said before, I cannot do several things at a time. So
I'm bad at juggling too. I'm very bad at juggling plates.
Would you have, as a writers, with this experience of being writer in residence, have recommendations to make to possible organizers of residence programs, maybe present here? Apart from splitting up the residency in two parts, which is a very good recommendation.
I didn't know that the residence could be split up in two parts. It comes as a wonderful surprise to me. So, no, I thought it was perfect the way it was. I was just so happy with everything. Perhaps a pussycat in that apartment, but that's just a private thing,
Yeah, well, for me it was important to really emerge in the city and to participate in the life of the city. And when I was in London, I took the initiative myself to go and see theater pieces and go out. I think it would be interesting to have that organized more, I think. To let writers get to know the cultural scene and to go in debates, or even let writers go in discussion with other writers or students, or to do that more, I think.
So getting to know the literary world in that other country is important also, and is something you would like to have when you're spending. That's important to know, because we also at Passaporta, we are balancing all the time between giving the writer, giving his time to write, and also making the writer be present in the literature scene, because what when he's gone again, what are the traces he will leave, how will we feel that he has been here? And so sometimes just by bringing them together in a dinner, the writer from Brussels who is in residence with other writers living in Belgium, the conversations they have, sometimes 2 years later, suddenly someone is saying, you know, because of the recommendation which has been made then, I have been translating this work now, or I have been reading this, or this has been playing a role in my next work. And so this is then the networking element and the interaction element, which for us in Passaporta is also quite important to work on during the residence program. Katie, maybe you want to make a final remark or recommendation after what you've been listening to now.
I'd love to see a program like ours pop up in Europe. I think it'd be fantastic. I think it's a wonderful model. I mean, I inherited it. Linda Gaborio founded the program. And when I was there as a participant, I really couldn't think. I don't know your name, Sarah, I mean, there's an amazing camaraderie among people. And once you're at Banff, the students, the participants, and the consulting translators are completely there to help each other. And there's no competition, and there's just a wonderful feeling of sharing this love of what we do and helping each other do it, and inspiring each other to do it better and whatever that might mean for our particular project. So I think it's a really amazing thing, and I think it really does help in one very small way to raise the professional profile of literary translators. So that's important to me, and I think it does it. Okay. And people love it. Just have a wonderful time.
And do you, I presume you are in touch with the Récit network in Europe and the centers who are working here with translators?
Well, as I said, the original founder was involved. There are people who've gone to ARL and talked to people. I'm actually on my way. After I'm in London, I'm going to go to Paris. I'm going to meet with the people from ARL and from the Literary Translation Association of France. So hopefully continue that. We are in touch with literary associations all over Europe, so they get our mailings. And as I said, we've recently had, I feel like Europe has discovered America, and we've gotten a lot of applications from Europe, which is fantastic. It's wonderful. I also think I think the level of professionalism among North American literary translators has always been a little bit lower than Europe, or at least parts of Europe. So I think that exchange is also particularly good for North American translators.
It's Sarah again. There was one final point I wanted to make, which is that we've been hearing a lot about what a gift these residencies can be and what an extraordinary experience they offer. The other point I'd like to make is that there is a level, certainly for literary translators, at which I very strongly feel they are very, very necessary. Yes. They're not just a gift. And I say that because if one isn't working within academia and you can't take a sabbatical, if you make the decision to tackle a deeply difficult text that requires an enormous amount of time to turn it round to the quality of translation you want to deliver and get published, it is sometimes only possible to do that, not least financially in your head, in the knowledge that you can buy yourself between 1 and 3 months of additional time just to do those extra circuits that a very, very difficult text requires. And I think it's crucial for the literary translation world to feel that we have people who can do that who are not academics, that it is not just confined to people associated with universities.
I absolutely agree with you. I can't agree with you more. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes.
My question actually gonna take you to a bit different atmosphere. First of all, do you cover the Middle East as well, or do you include the Middle East in your translation?
Absolutely. Actually, we have two Arabic translation projects this year, and anybody anywhere in the world who's translating a North American author is accepted. Yeah,
actually,
can be accepted.
Yeah. One of my projects is to translate Rushdie into Arabic.
Rushdie?
Salman Rushdie, yes.
Oh, he's not North American, so...
all right, so
I mean, maybe he is in some other incarnation.
Now,
but
my question is how to tackle other problems other than the fund and the sort of things. It's like, I'm struggling to find a printer here in the UK to print the Arabic version of the Satanic Verses. Which is, I don't know if that's related, I don't know. And the other thing, because I'm interested...
To print an Arabic version of Satanic Verses in the UK?
No.
Oh,
in the
right.
Arab world, yes.
Okay.
No, definitely not in here.
Yeah.
But I wanted to print it in here because I can't print it in the Arab world. But again, people look at it as it's a bit risky, so they don't want to print it. So where I'm going to print it then? Right? It's already existing in English, so why they can't print it in Arabic? The other question is, my project is to translate one of the novels for Carol Gemma, I think she's around here, again to Arabic and other Middle Eastern languages, but I struggle to get funds for that because it talks about the evolution theory, which doesn't, they don't believe in evolution theory. So how people like us who want to make some changes in that world. If we cannot, nobody defend us, nobody, I don't know. How the literal translation could help in this matter to get the literature from the West translated to that part of the world. So if some reluctant there.
Well, I think that this whole idea of translation residencies, that's one of the ideas, is this cross-fertilization, that people meet each other and...
Yeah, I'm myself a publisher, just established recently, and my aim is to bridge the gap between nations. And I feel, because I'm originally from the Arab world, I feel that one of all my titles now are suitable for the Arab world, but I can't find support to publish in there, actually, and translate. So I wonder if Literary Translation Center could help in this matter. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Other than finance, I mean, campaigning or other things. I don't know.
I don't know.
All right.
I'm sorry. I don't think I can help.
Where does the impulse to translate? And this is a general question. I mean, do translators go up to publishers and say, I want to publish this book? Or do publishers buy a book and decide, okay, we'll hire a translator to publish it?
I got the copyright for some of my titles. I am the publisher. I got the copyright. I want them to be translated to different languages, of course.
I'm very sorry, but I think this is a completely other subject.
Yeah, this is what I said at the beginning. It takes you to different atmospheres. Just
I know, I understand, but actually our time is over, and I think we can discuss this maybe later, with people who are
interested,
are more able to give you answers on this subject. So I would like to thank you all very much for your attention, and I hope you have been inspired by the stories and the witnesses of the people around the table. Thank you very much, Catherine, Neil, and Rashida.